You know, we've been trying to warn about the authoritarian tendencies of Donald Trump for quite some time, and I'm not exactly sure why people didn't want to heed the message sooner. I don't know if they thought we were being hyperbolic or what it was, but we now have a situation developing in California where these authoritarian impulses, they are in very clear focus. Donald Trump over the weekend deployed the National Guard to LA based on a faulty premise of wide-scale riots. He's threatening to arrest the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and they're also threatening to deploy active duty military to the streets of California. And I want to go ahead and take a look at how all of this got started, maybe use this video as kind of a jumping off point for follow-up videos, because what is going on in California right now, it's just not normal. Donald Trump likely broke the law when he deployed the National Guard because he didn't consult with the governor of California. And all of this kind of got started because we have ICE agents going into communities and just ripping families apart. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the protest got started on Friday, and then we will take a look at how things kind of progressed from there. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
I'm sorry for the noise, but you saw tactical officers on things like Bearcat vehicles, flashbang grenades on the city streets of Los Angeles, which largely felt like, as some people described in local media, that the military was on the streets of Los Angeles. Historically, the Los Angeles Police Department does not cooperate with immigration enforcement efforts. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department does not cooperate with immigration enforcement efforts. But when you have got ICE in Los Angeles showing up reportedly at Home Depot, where many undocumented people go to get work as day laborers, you know the National Day Laborer Organizing Network well. Many of those people responded in the wake of the fires here in Los Angeles. When you've got ICE showing up outside of places like schools, it quite literally is striking fear into the heart of people all throughout this community. And it is, I think it's fair to say, the worst fear of so many people here who live in Los Angeles and who have heard President Trump threaten that they would do this. But when this day comes on a Friday morning that stretches into a Friday afternoon, people in Los Angeles are mobilizing and they are very upset. You have Cheerla here, one of the big NGOs here that fights on behalf of immigrant rights. Everybody is out today because obviously this is not to be tolerated by these folks here on the streets of Los Angeles, Chris.
Yeah, so California has a very robust immigration population, and now you've got ICE rolling into their neighborhoods and terrorizing communities. People are rightfully pissed off, and so people started standing up against what they were seeing in their communities because ICE, not only are they going out to Home Depot, doing workplace raids there, they did a raid in the fashion district at people working there, they're showing up at schools, and even more disgusting, they show up at courthouses, and you've got immigrants show up for their court hearings, engaging in our legal process, and once their hearing is done, ICE just snatches them off the street. It is absolutely despicable what we are seeing. So people are rightfully pissed off and people started to mobilize. And as you can see here, maybe there was a few hundred protesters who started to rise up against these jackbooted thugs. And Donald Trump decided later that because there was these pockets of violence within these protests that, that actually deserved the National Guard to be called out and deployed. Except all of that is just a farce. These protests started on Friday, and then they continued into Saturday. And yes, there was a little bit of violence, little pockets here and there, but this was not a situation that was out of control like Donald Trump wants you to believe. Here is what happened on Saturday.
Breaking news, a car goes up in flames right in front of Dale's Donuts as protests in Paramount get out of control and spill into Compton. And tensions escalate, officers in riot gear firing tear gas at protesters who are pushing back on immigration raids. Then people throwing stuff and banging on Border Patrol cars as they pass through crowds. Meanwhile, another crowd tries to block a U.S. Marshal Service bus. Federal law enforcement officers used tear gas and flashbangs to clear away the crowd. Tonight, U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley says federal agents arrested over a dozen people who impeded agents.
Yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and condone the violence. I disavow all of this violence. I don't think it's the right thing to do, and I don't think we need to give the Trump administration any reason to start inflicting violence back. But as we will see, Donald Trump didn't even need much of that to start deploying the National Guard anyway. So yes, was there a little bit of violence here and there? Sure. But this was not a wide-scale issue. People could still access city services like they needed them. Even the LA Police Department came out and said, hey, we've got things under control. This is not as big a deal as you're making it out to be. And we've got it. We're good. We're cool. We don't need the National Guard. You are just going to inflame tensions if you send the National Guard here. But that is exactly what Donald Trump did. On Saturday night, I believe it was, he decided that he was going to send the National Guard to LA. He didn't talk to Gavin Newsom at all, which is what you're supposed to do if you're going to be deploying the National Guard. And so then Saturday night or Sunday morning, they started to show up in LA. And of course, now you're just pissing people off even more. Now you're going to see more and more protesters who are standing up against the jackbooted thugs in the Trump administration. So here is what we saw on Sunday. So as you can see there on the left, I believe that is the National Guard. Now you are getting more crowds of people showing up to push back against this authoritarian regime because Donald Trump sending the National Guard to LA was just uncalled for. It did not need to happen. Like I said, all the city agencies, the mayor, Gavin Newsom said, we've got things under control. You don't need to send the National Guard, but he went through with it anyway. And these people, I mean, you're just provoking more people to show up and push back against your authoritarian regime, especially when you've got ICE agents rolling into communities and targeting people who are trying to work. You're not rounding up the criminals. You're not going after the national security threats, as you claimed. You're going and targeting Home Depot, the fashion district, and for many of these people who have been here for more than a decade, and now you're going and ripping them away from their families because you want a show of force and make yourself feel like a big, bad, tough guy for rounding up all of these immigrants. I mean, it is absolutely despicable. So then we had some clashes with the protesters and the police on Sunday.
Get back, get back.
We're pressed. I'm sorry. We're pressed. We're pressed. We're pressed. We have a right to be here. We are pressed.
Relax. I'm trying to get it. Relax.
We are pressed.
So I'm sure you guys saw that there. You had the police jabbing people with their javelins. You had that one guy striking his baton. It's now going to get out of control. And I think all of this probably could have been avoided. Like I said, were there pockets of violence here and there? Were there some opportunistic assholes who wanted to, create a little bit more violence or, I don't know, opportunity for him to go out or for people to go out there and loot or whatever? Sure. But LA police had it under control. Now you've got the National Guard there. Donald Trump spent, I think, 2,000 troops down that way. He tried to take credit for things calming down over Saturday night, even though the National Guard hadn't even made it to LA yet. So it's all a farce. This is Donald Trump declaring war against a blue city, against Gavin Newsom, against the people of LA, because we've known Donald Trump and Stephen Miller have salivated about doing this for quite some time. And I want to go ahead and show you this clip and give you kind of an idea of just how unprecedented it is to use the National Guard the way that Donald Trump is using it. This is Juliette Kayyem. She is a former assistant secretary at the DHS, and just listen to what she has to say.
Modern history hasn't seen something like this. And I think that's why Gavin Newsom and certainly our reporting from Josh Campbell regarding the concerns even in local law enforcement is now there's this federal overlay that is hostile to the sort of the way it generally works. And there's no training. We don't know what their rules of engagement are. We don't know why 2,000 have to be deployed. I'm looking at the pictures. I'm not minimizing civil unrest. Violence should not be used. It's against the law to disrupt a federal law enforcement action. But we have tools to do with this that are far less let's just say, caustic than what Donald Trump has decided to do tonight.
Yeah, and she's exactly right. I mean, just look at the crowds that we are looking at in this image here. I believe this was on Saturday when this piece was shot. We're not talking about hundreds or thousands of people. We're talking about maybe 100, maybe a few dozen. And like I said, maybe a dozen that got arrested for trying to impede officers. Those people were taken care of. But the way Donald Trump is doing this is just absolutely uncalled for. Like I said, you're normally supposed to coordinate with the governor. I think the last time the National Guard was used like this was at the LA riots back in '92, I believe it was. And that was an actual riot. That was an actual problem that needed to be addressed. It's not this fake problem that Donald Trump has created in his head to use as a pretext to go after LA. It is absolutely insane. It is insane. This is the authoritarianism at full tilt. I mean, this is what we were warning about. And Miles Taylor did an interview over at MSNBC to kind of give us even a further warning about just how concerned he is about Donald Trump. I mean, we saw some of this behavior in Donald Trump's first term, but now that he's surrounded himself with a whole bunch of sycophants, you know, we should be worried.
What is happening in Los Angeles is not a rational response to what they're seeing on the ground. This is indeed, in my view, pre-planned to be able to give the president justification to invoke the Insurrection Act. And it made sense that where they decided to do these raids was Los Angeles. I very firmly believe in the White House, they suspected the response would be protests, and then they could use the protests as a response to use the Insurrection Act. But this is much, much bigger than Los Angeles. I'm telling you, from the first term, if Donald Trump had gotten the authority to use the military on U.S. soil to enforce domestic law, it was going to go much beyond enforcement of immigration law. That was our fear, and we are seeing potentially the early innings of that play out in real time. So this is very, very significant. Folks need to wake up, and I don't suspect they're going to be going and asking governors for their permission in other states where they.
Yeah, that is absolutely terrifying. Donald Trump in his first term, when he was surrounded by at least some normal people like Miles Taylor, they were able to talk him off the ledge of doing insane shit. Donald Trump is now already planning or threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would give him even more power to start deploying the military all over the country. And I think we should be concerned about this. We know that Donald Trump is a wannabe authoritarian. We know that he likes the way that, Xi is able to rule his country with an iron fist, as Donald Trump said. Donald Trump would love nothing more to have the military in the streets cracking heads for anybody that dissents against the MAGA movement. That is what Donald Trump is looking for. That is what people like Stephen Miller are looking for. And I think if you are out there in LA, if you are going to join in these peaceful protests, I would suggest you remain peaceful, abide by the laws, because we do not need to give a reason to these fascist fucks to start engaging in more violence, engaging in the Insurrection Act, or engaging in more power grabbing, because things are just going to devolve out of control. So we've got ICE agents rolling into LA, terrorizing communities. They're going after hard workers, going after people who have been here for more than a decade. You've got ICE agents showing up at courthouses, snatching people off the streets after they're trying to engage in our legal process. They're rounding people up without any due process. They're, deporting American citizens at times. They're deporting others without any due process. What ICE is doing calls for backlash. But that backlash should not be violent. We should stand up and peacefully protest in numbers and let these fascist assholes know that this is not going to be tolerated in America. So that's kind of where we are, or kind of how things got started in LA with these protests turning into this National Guard deployment. But we're going to look at some other videos, some follow-up videos. We will be talking about this a bit more, I'm sure. But this is kind of a baseline for how things got started, how Donald Trump decided to escalate things, decided to pour gas on the fire when it was just not needed at all. And we will go from there. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that can push back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just launders this fascist nonsense for Donald Trump every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free. And if you guys want to see another Republican town hall where a Republican is getting his face torn off yet again by his own constituents, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.